Can you imagine it? The enduring belief among generations of Chinese people that owning a home guarantees a future is eroding piece by piece. Second-hand home prices across 100 cities have declined for 40 consecutive months, a relentless 3 years and 4 months of descent. The once thriving real estate season, dubbed Golden September and Silver October, now brings only a chilling wind. The housing market shows no signs of recovery. Instead, it continues its unending plunge. According to a September 1st report from the China Index Academy, in August 2025, the average price of second-hand homes in 100 cities stood at just 13,481 yuan per square meter, down 0.76% from the prior month, and a staggering 7.34% from the previous year. This translates to a 1 million yuan home losing over 70,000 yuan in value in a single year, while a 10 million yuan luxury property has quietly shed more than 700,000 yuan. Even more alarming, this marks the 40th straight month of declines. The market's cold, hard data proclaims that this winter in the housing sector is not a passing chill but a prolonged ice age. Many believed that prices in major cities would remain unshaken, clinging to this as their final solace. Yet the stark reality is that even first-tier cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen are faltering. August data reveals that second-hand home prices in these cities fell 0.55% month-on-month and 4.17% year-on-year. While these declines may appear modest for properties valued in the tens of millions, they equate to losses of hundreds of thousands or even millions of yuan. Second, third, and fourth-tier cities fare even worse. Second-tier cities saw a 0.85% monthly drop and an 8.14% yearly plunge. Third and fourth-tier cities experienced a 0.78% monthly decline and a 7.78% yearly fall. Behind these figures lies the evaporation of countless families' life savings, the shattering of middle-class aspirations, and the rigid entrenchment of social strata. Some note that new home prices in August averaged 16,910 yuan per square meter, up 2.73% year-on-year, and wonder if this signals hope for the market. However, industry experts have long exposed this illusion. New home prices are artificially bolstered by government policies, banks, and developers, propped up by upgraded projects that create a facade of prosperity. The second-hand market, which truly reflects demand, reveals the unvarnished truth through its persistent decline. The rental market is equally bleak. Despite the post-graduation season, typically a peak period for rentals, August saw average rents in 50 cities drop 0.15% month-on-month and plummet 3.76% year-on-year. Homes are neither selling nor renting. China's housing market is being forsaken by both buyers and renters, dragging real estate firms into a deepening crisis. The China Index Academy reports that from January to August 2025, the top 100 real estate companies achieved total sales of only 2.32705 trillion yuan, down 13.3% year-on-year. This is not the struggle of a few firms but an industry-wide collapse. Among the top 10 developers, average sales reached 114.5 billion yuan, down 12.1% year-on-year. The next tier, from 11th to 30th, averaged 28.72 billion yuan, down 15.4%. The 31st to 50th averaged 13.83 billion yuan, down 10.9%. And the 51st to 100th averaged 60.62 billion yuan, down 15.4%. No company is spared, even leading developers are sinking. Crick Real Estate Research provides even starker figures. In August, the top 100 developers' sales totaled just 207.04 billion yuan, down 1.9% month-on-month, and a striking 17.6% year-on-year, marking 6 consecutive months of decline. Chinese real estate companies are collectively struggling to survive this winter. Confronted with this grim reality, local governments have resorted to an absurd measure: price drop bans. To date, 21 cities including Shenyang, Yueyang, Kunming, Tangshan, Zhangyin, Yizhou, Zhangjiakou, Zhuzhou, and Yongzhou have issued these bans. Some enforce them through administrative orders, while others summon developers, demanding they avoid malicious price reductions under threat of withheld contract approvals. Ironically, these bans primarily appear in third, fourth, and fifth-tier cities, where housing supply vastly outstrips demand, and demand itself has long vanished. Suppressing prices with administrative measures is akin to covering a volcano's crater with a cloth. An eruption is inevitable. Meanwhile, construction offset homes are making headlines. These are unsold properties developers use to settle debts with construction workers or suppliers in lieu of wages. Once confined to third and fourth-tier cities, such homes are now flooding markets in second-tier cities like Guangzhou, Xiamen, Chengdu, and Nanjing. The dire financial state of developers requires no further explanation. To stem the crisis, the Chinese government has introduced numerous stimulus measures in recent years, lowering down payments, reducing interest rates, easing purchase restrictions, and relaxing resale limits. In August 2025, Beijing announced no limits on home purchases outside the Fifth Ring Road. Shanghai followed, removing purchase restrictions outside its outer ring. Suzhou lifted resale restrictions and Guangxi introduced low monthly payment products. Yet these efforts yield only marginal benefits. Bloomberg aptly noted that these policies merely postpone the inevitable, unable to alter the trajectory. The core issue is not the barrier to buying but the lack of willingness to buy. When people realize that a home is a liability rather than an asset, a burden rather than a store of value, no amount of lower rates or relaxed policies can restore confidence. Most despairing is that the housing market's depths are far from reached. In June, Goldman Sachs warned that Chinese home prices have already fallen 20% over the past 4 years and are projected to drop another 10% before bottoming out in 2027. Homeowners holding on today must endure 2 more years before glimpsing any hope. For countless middle-class families with 30-year mortgages, this means 730 more days of anguish, watching their home values dwindle while wages stagnate. Some describe China's middle class as an illusion built on homes. In 2025, this has become a brutal reality. Over the past 2 decades, more than 70% of Chinese household wealth has been tied to real estate. The People's Bank of China's Household Financial Survey reveals that 77.7% of urban household assets are in property, with cash and deposits comprising just 11.4%. Chinese families have staked nearly their entire future on the myth that homes always rise. But now, with prices falling for 40 consecutive months, the nation's middle-class wealth is vanishing night after night. Consider an average middle-class family who, a decade ago, stretched to buy a 3 million yuan home in a second-tier city. Today, with continuous price drops, that home may be worth only 2.4 million yuan, a loss of 600,000 yuan. More brutally, they still carry over 2 million yuan in loans, with no reduction in debt. On paper, they've shifted from asset owners to debt holders overnight. This is not just one family's plight, but a national calamity. Goldman Sachs predicts that by 2027, Chinese home prices will fall another 10%. With the national housing market valued at 70 trillion yuan, at least 7 trillion yuan in wealth will disappear, directly from the pockets of ordinary families. As wealth vanishes and incomes decline, more people are unable to cope. Online stories of mortgage defaults are spreading. A couple earning a combined monthly salary of less than 15,000 yuan faces a 20,000 yuan monthly mortgage. With home prices still falling, some abandon their homes to banks. Though banks and official media suppress these reports, industry insiders estimate default rates in first and second-tier cities at 2% to 3%, with higher rates in third and fourth-tier cities. These numbers represent hundreds of thousands of homes and families torn apart. The housing market's collapse is not merely about assets, it is a collapse of belief. In the past, buying a home was a prerequisite for marriage or starting a family, a symbol of status, the foundation parents insisted upon. Now young people are awakening. A home is not a foundation but a shackle. Statistics show that in the first half of 2025, China's birth rate continued to decline, with annual newborn numbers projected to fall below 7 million, a historic low. Young people are increasingly opting out of marriage and parenthood, largely because homes have shifted from the start of a family to a tomb for life. More young people are refusing to bear the burden, declaring, "I'd rather live simply than buy a home." They prefer spending on travel or experiences rather than locking 30 years of youth into a depreciating property. The housing market's collapse has another overlooked consequence. Small cities are being hollowed out. Data from the first half of 2025 shows accelerated population outflows from third and fourth-tier cities. Many young people are fleeing to larger cities or abroad, leaving behind unsellable homes and increasingly vacant cities. In one northeastern city, for instance, the number of second-hand homes listed for sale in 2024 doubled from 2019, yet transaction volumes halved. Streets lined with new residential complexes stand dark at night, a vivid portrait of ghost cities. As population outflows, economic decline, and falling home prices converge, many small cities are trapped in a vicious cycle. People leave, homes remain unsold, fiscal revenues collapse, infrastructure stalls, and more people depart. Entire cities risk being forgotten by history. Price drop bans may seem absurd, but they reflect local governments' fear. China's local governments rely heavily on land sale revenues, which reached 8.7 trillion yuan in 2021, nearly half of their fiscal income. By 2024, this had fallen below 5 trillion, a 40% drop. With land unsold and developers unable to buy, governments cannot fund roads, subways, or salaries. Local finances are unraveling, with reports of delayed payments to teachers, doctors, and civil servants becoming commonplace. For governments, housing prices are not just a market issue but a political one. If prices fall below a critical threshold, it's not only developers that collapse, local finances and even social stability may follow. The most alarming aspect is that China's housing crisis will not remain confined to homes. It is an earthquake poised to shake society. Bank mortgages are banks' largest assets. A surge in defaults would spike bad debt rates, unleashing uncontrollable financial risks. With 70% of household wealth tied to homes, falling prices shrink national wealth and consumer spending. The real estate sector and its related industries account for 25% to 30% of GDP, so a housing market collapse effectively stalls the economy. As middle-class wealth evaporates and social mobility falters, resentment and discontent will rapidly mount. Some still hope that, if prices fall, young people can afford homes. Yet, as prices drop, unemployment rises, wages stagnate, and confidence erodes. Homes may become cheaper, but young people lack the funds and courage to take on 30-year debts. Thus, homes remain unsold, the middle class continues its descent, and governments remain gripped by fear. This is a game with no victors. Homes were once the strongest armor for Chinese families. Now they have become the coffin lid crushing countless households. Thanks for watching and joining us on this journey to unveil China's many layers. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated. See you in the next video.